Here we go. I'm here with former Chicago Bull, three-time NBA world champion, and current Charlotte Hornet front office scout, Dickey Simpkins. Dickey, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day to join me.
No problem at all.
Appreciate it. Dickey, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your Chicago Bull playing days. You were part of the record-setting 72-10 squad. You played with arguably the greatest player of all time in Michael Jordan, and played for arguably the greatest coach of all time in Phil Jackson. Of the three NBA championship teams you were a part of, is one more special than the others?
I think the 98 championship, I would say, is the most special one. And the reason why that's the most special one is because when the season started, we kind of knew that was going to be the last run. So Coach Jackson had that conversation before we started, and it made it more special to be able to win the whole thing. And then it was the last championship and the last time that whole group was together. So I would say the last championship, 98, was the most special.
I know that Mr. Jordan values his privacy, but can you share with our audience maybe one tidbit that would provide some insight as to why he was as great as he was?
I think the first thing is the competitiveness on everything that he did. That's one major reason why he was as good as he was. I think the second thing is just his approach to the game from a mental standpoint, not just game, but practices. He practiced. I think one of the few things people know is that he practiced every day. Like, he wasn't taking practices off. He could score 55 points in a game, have back-to-back, 50 points, 45, and that next day he was practicing and energetic in practice. Not like this is a drag. And he was as competitive as anything. And then I think the last thing is just his whole professional approach to the game and the business part of basketball, and still be a real guy, amongst his teammates. Obviously, like you said, very private. We were family. But I think those three things are what
Sure.
competitiveness, his approach mentally, and then it's just his professional attack as far as the game and the business part.
Coach Jackson is often referred to as the Zen master for his unorthodox motivational tactics. Can you recall when you played for him any non-traditional methods that he used on you to try to motivate you to becoming a better player?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I heard Shaq one day talk about it on TNT. Phil used to light this, I think they call it sage. He used to light this this thing and hang it up, and the smoke would go around the room, and it had a pretty interesting smell to it, a non-traditional smell to it that was pretty funny. I think the first time when I went to the Burrow Center where we practiced at, and I smelled it, I was like, what's going on up here? So I was like, so then when we went in the film room, you could see he had it hung up, and it was like almost like some straw hay type of stuff that he would light, almost like an incense, and it just had a peculiar smell to it.
Gotcha.
But it was supposed to kind of clean the air and help everybody get their mind right. And I think the other thing that Phil did that was pretty interesting that I'd never done is, we got into a lot of meditating, visualizing success, just closing our eyes and kind of just being in the moment. I think that was big from a mental standpoint that I had never done in my life, but was very receptive to it.
When he asked you guys to visualize, did he ask you to visualize, team success? There are some college coaches will actually have their team practice cutting down the net to simulate winning a championship, or did he have you visualize you excelling in your individual role that will help the team achieve its goals?
He had us do both. It was a combination of both. Visualizing the team success, but visualizing your part and your role in a successful way that helps for that team's success. and visualizing the moment and almost being in the moment. We would always talk about being in the moment. So when that moment came, you would be able to react and instinctively react and do what you need to do as far as your role. But it was a combination of both, and we would do it. That would be sometimes a practice day. We would do it on the road, in the hotel. So I thought that was big. And then the last thing he did that I thought was pretty interesting, that everybody pretty much knows, he gave everybody a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember me being a rookie, and he gave me my particular book. And I don't know if everybody else read their books, but I had to read my book. It was going to be some homework.
You had a book report,
Man,
huh?
I had a book report to do. But then we had another book that was kind of for the whole team.
Okay.
And since I was a rookie, before every practice at home, I had to read this book in front of the team. It was like a daily type, motivational passage type book.
Sure.
So I had fun with it. I thought it was cool, and I'm always intrigued with that type of mental part of the game. So I kind of had fun with it. Had the guys laughing whenever I had to read it before the team. So I would make it kind of like a sermon type thing, and the guys would laugh at it. So I think those three things, between the lighting of the fragrance, the meditation and the mental part and the visualization, and then the book part, were all three things that I thought were big team building, mental building, and just overall success. It's the little thing that played a big part.
Excellent. I think that the 96, 72, and 10 team is going to be in the news quite a bit the remainder of this NBA season as a result of what Golden State has accomplished so far. I'm curious, do you and your former teammates, when you guys get together, you see each other in the airport, it's a planned gathering or just a text message here and there, where are you guys at with them eclipsing that record? Is that something you want to remain intact? Are you rooting for them? Do you want them to win 70 games but not 72? Talk to me about that.
Well, the funny thing is I haven't really, I see guys and we communicate from time. Obviously, I work for MJ, and I saw Tony Kukoc recently, and saw Bill Wennington. I communicated with, and it's funny, I communicated with Steve Kerr, who is actually if they get the record, will be a part of 2 big records. But I haven't really talked to them about what their take is on Golden State having an opportunity to break the record. The one thing I can say is, for me personally, from a selfish reason, I don't want the record broke.
Understandable.
I don't want it, but it's fun to see them having the opportunity to break it. It is fun to see it, but I don't want it broken. It will take a lot to do it. They have the ability to do it, but selfish reasons, I don't want it broken. But I know, like we all, as time evolves in sports or whatever, records end up being broken. I mean, we broke the record, but it's cool because it's 20 years now. You're right. It's talked about because of Golden State's approach, but it's 20-year anniversary from that achievement. So, maybe it's time for it to be broken, but I don't want it to.
Sure. I have to ask you one last question about that 96 team in relation to the current Golden State team. Everybody talks about Golden State's positionless basketball and their small ball, skilled, 5 skilled guys out there, and they talk about that lineup of, with Draymond Green at the center, maybe Harrison Barnes at the 4, Andre Iguodala at the 3, Clay at the 2, and Stephen obviously at the 1. I'm biased because I grew up watching your Bulls teams. I'm a Chicago guy, but I've kind of went back a little bit, and this is something you and I have talked about off the record. The Bulls, I think that 96 team could have played small ball as well, with Dennis Rodman playing the 5, Tony playing the 4, and then the last 3 are so interchangeable with Ron, Harper, Scotty, and MJ. Doesn't matter, 1 through 3, they all play the same thing. I think people forget what an accomplished pro Ron Harper was for more than a decade in this league and had legitimate 6'6" size. And then You know, Tony Kukoc, he was way before his time. Way before his time. 6'11", skilled guy, handle the ball, pass the ball. He was doing what Draymond did, you know, back then, 20 years ago, as you said. What do you think about a 7-game series between those two teams and you know, segments of that series with those particular matchups?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, just from my perspective, you know, that team back then and the Golden State Warriors, I have to put my money on the Bulls back then. So it's just 7-game series. The Bulls are winning that series, and I'm not just saying that because I was a part of that organization and team, but the reason why is, I guess the next question would have to be, what rules will we be playing with? Will we be playing with the current rules of today where, you know, if you just lightly touch a guy, it's a foul? Will we be playing with the rules from back in the day where it was physicality in that game and, you know, you had to play through it? Or will we find a common ground? I think if we played either way, the Bulls still win the game. I mean, you know, Steph Curry is an unbelievable player, obviously, in the way he's playing right now with his versatility, being able to shoot, pass, off the dribble, catch a shoot, get to the rack. Obviously, he's a tough guard. People always ask me, I mean, this is a great conversation and it's a great debate. We will never know, but people always ask me, you know, can people stop Steph Curry? You can't stop Steph Curry. But what you try to do when you got an offensive player that can score is you got to make him play defense. So now the question is, who does Steph Curry guard on that team? Does he guard MJ? Does he guard Ron Harper? Does he guard Scottie Pippen? Because either one of those guys he guards, he's going to have to play D the whole game. You know, so that is, you know.
And all three of those guys can post up.
All three of those guys can post up. So he's going to have to play post defense, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to have to send a double team for him. As far as the other guys and the point that you made, that our team back then could play small ball or play big ball. You know, like you said, Dennis Rodman, Dennis Rodman plays center at large moments of the game. Tony Kukoc, a versatile mobile 4, score, pass, shoot, with height and length, you know, and then like you said, the 3 guys, MJ, I mean, greatest to ever play the game, bottom line.
Yep.
And Scotty, arguably one of the best versatile two-way players that's ever played the game, bottom line. And Ron Harper, like you said, he was an all-star in the NBA. So I would have to put my money on our team just because of the maturity level at the time, the talent level, the versatility of being able to play small or big, and just having the greatest player that ever played the game gives you an edge.
Absolutely.
So I would say we would win in a 7-game series. And I think because, you know, at the end of the day, could Golden State play a physical game? I don't know if they can do that. But they have a talented team. But I'm going to put my money on us.
I respect that. I appreciate your thoughts on that. Let's shift gears here for